Here in the Montesino in Vienna, some of the finest poker players on the planet are battling not for a title or a bracelet, but for cash, and very large amounts of cash at that. For 48 hours, this casino is being dominated by one event, the Party Poker Big Game. And on the basis of what's happened so far, the game has every right to be centre stage. The big game has always been at the forefront of innovation in the world of poker, and this, the sixth staging, still has plenty of tricks up its sleeve. For 48 hours, those that can stay the distance will. Few choose to leave the table, but evictions, either from the players' vote or the public's, might yet decide their fate. It all adds an extra dimension to this already fascinating game and gives those waiting in the wings a chance to play.
One man who's refusing to be shifted from this table is Phil Laak. He has been busy enough to avoid evictions and successful enough to avoid being busted out. In fact, he's led from the opening hour through to now. But he's all too well aware of his weaknesses.
Sometimes I just get carried away because bluffs and odd bet sizing. I think they're waiting for me to do one of these lumpy wrong things into their stack. That's what I would want. I would be thinking. And they're all sharp, so I have to just I think I should just be careful.
It's the men chasing Laak that have caused the greatest debate, from Ignat Liviu, who was eventually voted off, to Alec Torelli, who suffered the same fate but has returned to mount another challenge. Thoughts of his rival never far from his mind.
I've been playing pretty bad against him, and he's been playing really good against me, so it's a bad combination, but I'm hoping that I thought about a lot of the hands we played, and so I'm hoping I can make some adjustments and redeem myself against him.
With all the comings and goings around this table, it's worth a look at the leaderboard. The familiar sight of Phil Laak at the top, with Alec Torelli chasing hard. Andy Moseley has had a very productive few hours, as has Dominykas Karmazinas. As for the rest of the field, Seiver, Tony G, and Chartier are all below their starting stacks.
Will Scott Seiver get dug into this big game? I feel like until he has like a 40 or 50,000 euro stack in front of him, Scott, and whether he can either buy it or win it, but until that time, he's not dug in. He can't play the game.
Raise 500.
He's with the sheets off.
Call.
Yeah, well, he's got 17K in front of him. Almost 100 big blinds. He's probably he's not deep enough to get really creative. He's probably looking for a spot to win a big pot, and then once he gets over 20, 30,000, he should be real comfortable in this game.
Well, from what we've seen from Chartier, this is one of those spots where he might decide to try and, stick a 3-bet in. It's Tony G who's opened it.
26.
Yeah, I could feel. And let's be honest, it's a light 3-bet, and as you said, people are starting to pick him off.
Well, Alec, I think, is going to pick him off here with the Cowboys.
Yeah, this is
It's a really bad spot for Chartier. This is the most marginal 3-bet he makes all game, and he just runs into kings behind him.
Torelli's got so many people behind him, including...
He could flat here, and he's been making that play a lot, flatting with big pairs to a 3-bet.
Just the idea that with Laak still in the pot, and also, I guess, Moseley still in the pot,
and
who's
Tony
very
G
deep.
jacks behind him, who...
You don't really want to get him...
Big decision.
You don't want to be in a multi-way pot, but you want someone to squeeze behind you. So he could definitely take either option here, to raise or to call. Neither would be incorrect.
5,400.
He opts for option A, which is to raise to 5,400.
That's probably big enough.
Yeah, it's probably enough. That'll probably take this one down.
Chartier is...
Unless Chartier wants to jam here, which would be uncharacteristic.
I agree. However, he is definitely...
He's probably a little fed up. I mean, like he's not opening very frequently, and when he does open, he's still getting 3-bet, and that's got to be frustrating.
it's not just been a rough couple of hours for Chartier because he hasn't really picked up the right kind of hands. It's been a rough couple hours because his stack is kind of petering, you know? And you can just feel that he wants to get it in. I mean, he just wants to get his money in, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's...
This is not the hand. He's not going to do it with ace-10. But
he's stuck about 15,000 now.
I mean, if he had ace-jack, maybe even if he had nines, I mean, who would know?
He does it. He goes all in.
Wow, he did it with ace-10. He did it with ace-10.
I mean, it was a frustration move. He'd been opening, and whenever he opened, which wasn't very often, he was getting 3-bet. This was his line in the sand here.
Would you agree that Chartier is either going to, if he loses this, he's going to be...
he's done.
Yeah.
I think they agreed to run it twice, though, so maybe he can get half the pot and continue playing.
I think you could offer Sam a chop. I'm fine with the chop.
Offer him a chop. I think he'll take it.
Everyone would be happy with the same thing. Everyone, they said twice. Everyone makes money. You're all happy. Just chop it off.
I'm at a stage now where I've actually slept on Chartier. He was in the game early this morning. I left, took a nap, came back. He's still in. And we were talking, Scott, when he first came in the game. He was so intense. He was giving everybody this 1,000-yard stare. He looked mean. He was really playing strong. And I think he's petered out. I really think he's tired. He's not the same kind of threat.
He doesn't look like he's got a lot of energy there. And, well, he looks like he's going to get half this pot. Unless one of those last two kings shows up on the Turner River.
You know, he's obviously a very talented player. I mean, you know, this is a guy with, what was it, $1.5 million in tournament earnings?
I didn't say, but he's definitely a accomplished player. I see him all over the circuit.
Yeah.
Just made a big final table just a week ago in Dublin. Makes a straight instead on the river. Doesn't matter though.
Didn't even need to use the ace. No. Saved it for the other. Ace was a little bit overkill.
He's kind of, every time he runs it twice, he gets half a pot. It's almost like he's...
You're actually playing tighter than I thought. I didn't know there was a trophy involved.
I don't know. He's just surviving.
Really
because he's beating the rake.
Now I'm disappointed, now that I know there was a trophy.
But...
And the world record.
I think Chartier would be better served, and I'm certainly not going to tell him this. Maybe he's feeling like I could double up and get even, and then I'll go. Phil Laak, though, still the big winner. And as we've seen, there's just no huge losers at this table right now.
Maybe this kid can do it.
Raise.
New kid.
Fold. 750 raise.
Dominykas.
And for Chartier, this is actually a massive hand because, you know, from what we've seen, and they just saw what he did with the ace-10. I mean, they think he's on monster blown-out tilt.
Yeah, well, he actually did get half the pot there. That might be enough to cool him down. He might realize that he just kind of got lucky there and is allowed to stay in the game and keep his head together. And he wakes up with a very big hand in the next spot and gets the perfect flop with his ace-king, a king-high flop versus Seiver, who thought it was a good spot to flat behind him with king-9 because he thinks Chartier is off of his A-game.
Chartier's got, well, they both got like effectively 15,000 or so back, and I mean, if Chartier goes bet, he can get it all in.
Yeah, and that's a terrible, terrible, terrible card for Chartier. Scott makes the only card that can get him the lead here.
Yeah, but he doesn't know it, and he's still gonna.
It's super disguised too, because Chartier probably puts him on a draw. If not, it's pretty hard to put him on another king in that spot because he's got the king there. And Scott can represent a hand like you know, some sort of diamond draw here, or combo draw, or pair of sevens with a flush draw. It's going to be pretty hard for Chartier to fold ace-king here if Scott makes this raise on the turn.
He's such a great reader of the game, Scott. I know he's only going to he's only putting the money in right now if he knows what Chartier has, like reads it.
Yep, and he does. Yeah. Chartier snap calls.
Yeah, he's.
I'm fine with twice. You choose. Okay, twice.
Okay, 2 times.
They agree on 2 rivers.
It's not good. It is not good. I think you could run it 10 times.
No one, Warren. They're drinking, obviously. They're in the back.
And this could be the end for Chartier, right? Very unlucky, Scott.
Twice.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad spot. Scott gets the only card, and I think he would have won a big pot. I think Scott would have called the turn had he not hit the 9. First one goes to Scott. An ace and only an ace. He's going to save Chartier on the river here to win half the pot.
Sam has faded a lot of these. He was patient with the 9.
So now Scott Seiver, 1 seat open, and Seiver's stack is going to be as big as his smile.
And that's where Scott wanted to be right now. He bought in for 10, lost that, bought in for another 10, but worked it up now to about 34,000, and now he's deep and comfortable.
Chartier finally leads the big game, having endured the ups and downs of this 48-hour cash game before Scott Seiver delivers the fatal blow that ends his time at the table. Welcome back to the Party Poker Big Game. Here in Vienna, the ever-changing nature of this game has seen one player leave and preparations underway for a new face at the table. 6-handed at the moment, with Phil Laak leading the way.
The 48-hour cash game breaks.
Need Annie's, please?
It looks like it's
sorry.
going.
In 6 seasons
Tony, what will we
of the
play
big
on?
game, and there have been some times,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Scott, where it seemed like, you know, the big game is going to break up. It has always survived.
Yeah, I think we're in no jeopardy of that not making it to tomorrow.
I really don't either. I mean, I think
the game is full, and there's people who want to play. There's
people who want to play, and there's a couple war horses on the table.
Phil has all the chips, and he's committed to play the whole time. As long as Phil is there with his chip stack, there will be someone there to play him. I promise
You're
you.
basically paying a small amount because you're not
We
making
raise
as much, but you're still making.
3,050.
I think so too, and I think there's a couple of guys who are going to turn the corner.
I don't know if I like this whole hat and glasses and not talking Phil Laak. I like the, you know, witty philosopher Phil Laak.
He wants to talk. In principle, he wants to talk.
But why isn't he then? Explain it to me, because I don't.
He tenses
I don't
up
understand.
sometimes because
Oh, is that what it is?
he doesn't want to affect the future.
The banter
He's
stakes
just
are going to
fired.
be so much
He doesn't
fun
know
with
what
Scott
the future
Seiver
is.
here.
None of us
He
do.
doesn't know what Torelli gonna do.
Oh,
What
cool.
Seiver-
We know
He
what
doesn't
Torelli's
know
going
what
to
the
do.
flop's gonna come like.
Laak squeezed this on the button
We know
from
exactly
700
what
to
Torelli's gonna
3,000. And Torelli's tanking with the 2 6s. And the tank with the 2 6s here, Scott, is really complicated by how
How deep
effectively.
everybody is,
right.
sure.
So what would you do with
Well, Torelli here has plenty of chips, 100,000, but you got to look at your other stacks. Laak's got him covered, and Moseley has 56,000, so he can call off 3,000 with 6s to flop a set. They're deep enough to do that by a wide margin. But he's not doing that. I think he's putting in another raise.
9,000.
He could have just called.
But he's kind of got Laak's number here in
Yeah,
a sense.
I don't think Laak can call this. He did have that. He was deep enough to call, but he opts for the raise. Picked up on Phil's weakness here, and this should take it down.
How much of this color is he?
Unless Phil wants to get into a really big one, but Phil generally folds it when he rechecks his cards like that.
He is in position. I mean, he's.
We have a pot.
And yeah, this is going to be a good one.
I'm not surprised to see this thing start. And I mean, Laak's got the same 2 cards that he busted Torelli's aces with about 18 hours ago.
This is actually a real good flop for Torelli's 2 6s, but at the same time, he's concerned about Phil having an overpair here. However, if he had the best hand pre-flop, it's likely to still be the best hand.
Well, I hear you, but this pot started at 20,000 pre-flop, so do you exercise pot control?
Nope.
No, go for it.
12,000 bet and take it down. Phil does not want to continue when he bricks that flop.
Ace king.
Oh, did I?
You pushed out the pocket 4s.
No, I didn't.
You could call 3,000.
No, it was Tony.
Phil's part, the 10-8 off.
Tony's ever calling?
Even if he can't call, he's still
No,
calling.
it's like,
That's what I'm
we have
saying.
only one big blind.
Look at this. Torelli ahead 80,000 euros. I mean, he's closing in.
Yeah, he's definitely closing in now. Torelli has over 125,000 with that pot. Phil Laak down to about 160,000. But both are up big in this game, up about 220,000 combined. They are the winners in this game.
That shit's scary.
It wasn't tilted.
The only significant winners.
I'm like slightly untilted. I still might have to take a 1 round break. Because I just know when I'm in this mode, I just, no.
Everybody in the game right now is actually up
29
except
minutes
for
away
Tony
from
G, who's stuck 11.
Yeah, it's not only that we've had a bunch of big losers in this game that have left, but so much.
Hitting auto update. It's not there yet.
Excuse me, Scott. So much of the money that's been won in this big game is still on the table. If you just add up, all the total money won, I mean, how much of the money won has left? A couple of sort of small winners, I guess. Ignat, who we remember.
There's about
All I have to do is sit here
450,000
and
on the
wait
table
30
right
minutes
now.
to
Right,
decide it, and then I'll know.
And there's only 6 people there, so if 2 people sit in with 20,000 apiece, I mean, we're at that $500,000 mark.
I mean, is there enough money on the table right now that, Tom Dwan, who kind of flew here from Hong Kong and now is flown back to Hong Kong, might be thinking to himself, I'll just turn around and get on the next plane back here. What?
I doubt we're going to see him here in time, but I'm sure if he were here, he'd be in the game.
I don't know what these two know. My guess is these two have very little history together, if any at all, Scott. And Moseley just, on him from the start here.
I'm not certain about that. I know that, however, Scott does not play very often in Europe and probably not in Macau. I think Moseley probably spends his summers in Vegas, where Scott does as well, and they probably cross paths there at one point or another.
First bet checks.
Perfect card, huh?
Bet 3,000.
Perfect turn card.
That turn, Andy's made a straight. Scott is the up and down straight draw.
He's giving him the hard stare. And, I mean, because when Scott called on the flop, he had no hand, no draw. So, obviously, he's planning on making some sort of play. That's part of his plan.
Yeah, I like raising here a lot better than calling because it's tough to call. Like when you miss here, you just kind of have to check fold. Not to mention there are spots where you make your hand and it's no good anyway. To put your pressure on your opponent in this spot. However, and he has a real hand here, but still not strong enough to put in another raise. He's just gonna call.
Thank you.
Because Scott's basically representing a lot of full houses here, and Andy's straight would be no good against a boat. Wow, Scott gets very, very, very lucky on that river. It's the only card in the deck that will even chop it with him. He was drawing dead to win. 3 10s to chop. And now he's going to bet this for value. Hope Andy has just a jack. And we'll pay him off.
That's a big bet.
Bet 14,000. Fold.
Wow. Scott definitely didn't think he had the straight and was betting him off the same hand. And he didn't even think about it. Didn't even consider calling with his straight.
What a play by Scott Seiver. Called with dead air on the flop. Check raised the turn. Little did he know that even though Moseley was in weight, the barrel just busted him off the hand.
We should just only do 3 blinds then while we're four-handed.
Yeah, they're four-handed and agreed to go to 3 blinds, so I think it's going to be...
Wow, and this is a tough four-handed game.
Yeah, it's weird to straddle from the button.
I mean...
Just until he comes back.
Rank these players 1 to 4, not overall, just right now. At this moment, rank them 1 to 4.
Scott, Phil,
550.
Andy, Tony.
Yep. I think, although I would actually, right at this exact moment, rate Andy last, just because he's been bluffed twice now. You know, I don't know. He just.
But I mean, Tony himself has been a little lackadaisical as well.
You're right. You're right. You're right. But I think you're spot on. I think it's the dynamics. You know. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Andy, Tony. It's interesting though right now.
It's a big flop
so
for
sad.
Andy. Flops
Oh my
the
gosh. Oh my
What I
gosh.
thought were 20 stacks or 18
straight
stacks.
and flush draws.
Moseley's got 42,000 here.
This is a huge. We got a set and a combo draw.
Yeah. Now if it
Very big pot.
it sure was. Although Laak, just by calling on the turn, has really reduced variance, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has on the flop there. And now Andy's also picked up a pair to go along with his straight and flush draws. Hope Phil sees an opportunity to raise it, but no, he's probably going to bomb the river because that's been his MO all day.
Yeah, I actually quite like the way Phil
And
plays
now that's
these
just an action
spots.
killer. It gives Andy a running 2-pair, and it gives Laak a set on a 4-card straight board. I wonder what Phil's going to do here. He checks it back. He could have gotten some value there.
Yeah, there was different ways to play it, right? Where Laak was gonna win a whole bunch of money, but there was also ways to play where he was kind of gonna be when the money went in.
Sure, I mean you can't just look at it and say, well, he could have won a huge pot if he gotten in on the flop, and they could have made this a much bigger pot. But by the same token, had that heart come or that straight come, he doesn't double up Andy there,
Annie's please.
and just chooses to call.
Warren, it'll be a lot of fun. Come play.
Alex coming back into the game.
This big game is going on, and Alec Torelli back now with the old silk.
No.
He always wears a silk shirt, doesn't he? The man only wears silk.
All come back at noon. It's a better chance of keeping the game.
At least he's comfortable.
You know what I mean?
I don't think there's going to be a problem.
I know this game
There's
is
gonna be
only
a lot of people
five-handed,
just
but how
jumping
can
in
you
and
not be loving
There's
this
6 or 7
lineup?
people.
First of all, Scott Seiver's in the middle of the action with
I'm
chips,
saying
and
this game doesn't need to stop to keep it.
he is one of the sharpest minds, if not the
Roberto,
sharpest mind
Roberto.
in poker today.
Tricky, JP, Mitzi. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Too much money
Phil
at stake to stop.
raises the button. Ace-6 off.
Raise, call. Sorry, call 700.
Tony decides to call
This could very well.
the 7-3,
34.
which is not
3,400.
good. But Andy with the real hand here squeezes with the ace-king to
I don't know why, I just
3,400.
wanted to throw away
And
another
Phil
one.
is made a little bit of a misstep
600,
here.
I don't know, I'm
Puts in the
throwing
4th bet.
7 high.
Snap puts in the
Raise all
4th
in.
bet. And Andy just shifts it in. And now Phil with you can't call.
Yeah, I just take this in. 10.
Although honestly, it's close mathematically. There's like enough money out there. There's going to be like over 20,000 in the pot, and it's going to be about 20,000 to call. So actually, Phil conceivably could call here. It wouldn't be that bad of a call. The math is actually really, really close on this call.
So it's 20.
He's about a 3-to-1 dog, or 2-to-1 dog, excuse me.
This is,
And
1, 2, 3, 4.
yeah, that's what he's just realizing right now, Scott. And it's not like, I mean, this is one of the first times that Phil has,
Once or twice.
yeah, and he calls off because like
I mean, I have to try and
he
catch
kind of
it.
committed
75
himself
more.
with that raise. He was just wrong.
24.75.
he keeps saying I'm
Yes,
stuck
yes.
too much. What he means is he's trying to
Okay,
catch
perfect.
Tony for
Right.
history.
Exactly.
Turn it
But,
up, turn 'em over for the
I'm
viewer.
not turning over.
Phil, for the whole
He's
viewer.
going to catch that 6. He's going to catch it one time.
They already can see it. Look, when a guy's melting off his money, you don't have the right to see his hand. That's the way it is in a poker room.
When the guy's up 150,000 in the game.
So what? He's melting it off now. You gotta let him have his way.
There you go, ace king to beat.
Phil doesn't have to show his hand if he doesn't want to,
You want to swap?
but they will find. They will
I
find
like
out.
Phil's mojo.
hang on,
Did you see?
I'll play
When a guy's
Tom.
melting off his money, he says, you don't have to show.
Phil will show it when he hits that 6.
Maybe I get lucky.
Wow.
If he luck boxes something, he'll table it. He can chop with a 10 now.
10, right?
Jack 10 seems pretty good.
He's got ace queen.
Phil is usually so.
Andy thinks he's got ace queen. It's not that strong.
No. There's no way he has a pocket pair.
Wow.
Am I winning?
I'll bet that he is.
Wow.
This is the best.
Andy's gonna feel very slow roll. Andy's. Let's look at Andy's face when Phil turns over the
Oh
ace.
my, this is gonna get ugly. Lock.
Are you sweating right now or not really?
I don't care.
It just is what it is.
You feel comfortable, right?
Feel like 6 out of 10 comfortable.
Yeah. Yes.
They're all trying to gauge how comfortable Phil Laak is right now.
Like an 8 or a 9.
9 out of
Would you
10
give me even
comfortable,
money
yeah.
for Phil's hand? I would take it.
You want wait. How much?
Tony's.
No, deal the
I'm
river.
taking. Hang on. I'm taking.
Andy is going to
you
be
know
very
that?
upset when he sees this
How
hand.
could
Wait, stop! Don't.
how could he be taking
Seriously, don't
even
turn the
money
card.
on Phil's hand?
I'll bet. How much? Not 30,000, but I'll bet.
How much do you want to bet?
Well, maybe Tony's reading something off of Phil's
I'll
behavior.
bet 3,000.
3,000.
Bet more, Carl. 3,000.
3,000 with each.
No, he could also have small pairs here.
You
It's
guys got my
possible.
hand.
Yeah.
Wow, one time.
Come on. Oh my God, that's it. That's terrible.
No, that's not the one.
Let's see Andy's reaction to this. How slow rolled he feels.
How do we only bet 3,000? That's so bad. We're the worst.
More.
What's happened?
Wait,
Did Phil muck his hand? What?
Disgraceful.
I should have pressed.
Phil has just mucked his hand.
Mucked his hand?
60,000 euro mistake. Oh my God.
That's not possible.
The graphics we have been confirmed they are indeed correct. Phil has just mucked the winner.
He mucked the winning hand.
Oh, and that means officially he's been playing in this game too long. That will send him into mega monster tilt.
So bad. It's so obvious that he's.
I have never seen that.
I wonder what's going to happen in the bet because he bet he had the best hand. He actually did have the best hand.
Why did Tony bet after
60,000 euros.
Wow, 63,000 euros because Phil just didn't realize what he had or didn't recheck it or didn't notice there was a 6 on the board. What a mistake, Phil.
I mean, according to the rules of the game, unless a player turns over his hand, you cannot win the pot.
You would never do that.
Controversy never far away from the big game, and events here in Vienna haven't disappointed for the 6th staging of this event. Laak, the only player to have stayed the distance, may well be showing signs of tiredness as he mucks a winning hand on a massive pot.
Did Phil muck his hand?
Phil has just mucked his hand.
Mucked his hand?
60,000 euro mistake. Oh my God.
A costly mistake for the American, but one that provoked much debate around the table, fueled by a side bet on who had the winning hand. Laak's cards weren't shown to the table.
What would you want me to do? Just like throw the watch down or something.
You know, there's some other weird things that are happening. I mean, that side bet they made, you know,
Right.
Tony will claim he had the best when he finds out.
Tony gave us each 3,000.
You gotta.
But for
we have to
Phil
celebrate
Laak,
that you can make a bet like that, because then the younger guys that want a chance at the table.
He has no idea that he folded a6 there.
Yeah.
60,000 euros.
He's probably
and
gonna-
obviously,
he's gonna claim
if
he
he
had
had
ace-9 or
turned,
something.
Wrapped it with a pretty little bow.
Do you reckon I should have just 100,000?
We are so
Tony has
Correct.
lost a bet here that gave Scott and Alec each 3,000.
Yeah, but we know what the bet.
But
We know what the
it's
bet was.
interesting though. I mean, like because the bet was he'd win the hand, right?
The reason why he was willing to bet you
But-
guys
but
is
Phil
because
didn't
I
win the hand.
didn't allow him to take part
Or
of the
was it
action on my hand.
who had the best hand? I mean, so it depends how you
I
interpret the
was
bet
just
here, but
that's
that's not for us to discuss or to rather referee.
Because I was so like, if I try and do business, I'm just depressed.
Because if they were
that I
betting on
can't
who would
win.
win the hand,
Now, I mean,
it was in fact
that
Andy
hand, I
Moseley.
can't win it.
I missed that part. I just was like.
That was one of the.
So Andy just was like, oh, so if I'm not
That's one of the
gonna-
most expensive. I mean,
I
obviously,
didn't think I could get
you always see in poker, you know, you see mistakes that cost people a lot of money and stuff like
I'm just
that.
gonna be
it's one of the most expensive mistakes I've ever seen. When Moseley finds, when everyone finds out, it's going to have a huge ripple effect on this game.
I set that whole thing up.
800.
You did piggyback.
but
So you shouldn't expect to get the max. As the piggybacker, you shouldn't expect to get the
you
max
could have locked up
anyways.
30,000.
That's
I
what
never
I'm
could have
saying.
locked up. Because I would be stealing your action.
I'm definitionally dumber than you.
Yeah, you are. I feel a little better.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You should feel better. Because somehow you tied me in action.
Yeah, but who's the stupidest?
Me?
No.
No.
I think when Phil finds that out, maybe he won't believe it. Maybe he thinks he had something else, an ace-8 or an ace-9 there,
I should be smarter
and just
than that.
thinks the graphics are wrong. But I mean, we've confirmed it here that we've seen it.
Bet big, so he got scared.
Yeah, he did in fact have the ace-6 there.
Can't call.
Yeah, could have come anyway.
Once he finds that out, he might lose this game.
Could have easily come.
For me, that's better. Like, I had good odds there.
Huge flop for Moseley. This is going to just spin out.
Yeah, Moseley's flopped a pair and an open-ended straight flush draw. You can't whack a flop any more than that.
Phil would be the all-time winner. The game would bring.
And Dom has an open-ended straight draw.
I just have to watch you guys get it and be in more pain.
How painful
Lose 40 grand and then watch you guys just pick up 3 grand and
not pick
the
up
Tony
30.
party.
And not pick up
I couldn't pick it up. The second I try and get involved in that, I
Yeah,
can't
he'll
get
say
it.
no bet.
Yeah, the whole thing's tilting.
Yeah, the whole
40,
thing's off.
33, 30.
And all because you don't want to open your hand.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Alec, why are you even
had
trying to
perfect
swage
information.
this?
Yeah.
We just have perfect info.
No swaging
He says
available.
ace king. He says the hand is good. The cards run out. Nothing. Phil doesn't turn his hand over against a guy he likes, where Phil would be like, "Oh, I hit the 10, 100% of the time." Then Tony goes, "You know what? I got a feeling Phil's good here."
You're gonna show me one night.
They're still talking about it, but they have no idea what actually went on.
My response is 3.
I'm looking forward to a time about 25 minutes into the future when Phil Laak finds out that he folded the winner there.
Now his like little quadrant of power is intact for another year.
I got it for 25.
No one will ever get that close again. I was at 150.
You had the chance that no one else will have.
to just like
Just bet it.
By the way, if I hit that, I was going
You
to
should
be
have
like
just.
12
You should
away.
have
Well,
just made
have a look at the table. I mean, Phil Laak still had 120,000 euros, but what could have been had he taken Andy Moseley's entire stack? You can only think, and for Tony G, he's had to pay out 6,000 euros because of a bet he made on the table against both Scott Seiver and Alec Torelli, which may later come into question.
It's over.
Yeah. Well, I remember the high point. How good it felt.
I've seen it in poker many
31,000
times. Unless a
Back
player
in the
turns
old
up
days.
their hand,
Back when they gave,
they can't
you
be
know,
awarded the
aces and
pot.
kings
You
course
know,
not,
no
yeah.
one can turn up their hand for them.
Your
That's
opponent had queens
that's
and all that
that's a rule that is as old as poker.
times.
And there's like a lot of times when people don't realize what they have. You see it in poker games all the
I
time.
don't think I'm gonna
Guys don't
remember
realize
this
they have the
prop
winner.
for
But if they
years.
turn up
I
their
really don't think I'm
cards,
going to.
the dealer has to read their hand for
Spent
them.
only like
25,000.
25.
right. Because it was the whole, you probably got close to the max because he could have pulled
Too
back.
small for me now.
You think he would have, right? Or there's
I
at least a
can't get
chance.
30. The reason why you guys got it is because I couldn't imagine getting it myself.
Yeah. Oh,
I
there's
just
no
sat there
chance
all
you
the
could.
press that I couldn't even get the bet.
I appreciated that you didn't say anything.
I was actually in a
lot of
big
people,
hand
you know, the
during,
younger
I was at the
generation
table, wasn't in the
would.
hand, at the LATC a few weeks ago, when David Doc Sands and Sam Barnard were
There
in
are
a
a lot
pot,
of people that like don't
and
get it. Or would say something there.
Sam
I
like
assume we're doing
called
Gentleman, actually, during the Premier League.
Doc's
Where
like big
we're
bet on the river
Tom
with
and I
like
were doing,
ace
like,
high,
a prop bet.
either ace king. He goes, oh, I just have ace high, and then Doc triumphantly turns over his hand. He had like 2 pair, but his ace high was ace king of clubs for a made flush that he didn't realize he had. But because he turned it over, he had the absolute nuts, which he just called with, and was awarded a very big pot.
I guess we shouldn't bet.
So always turn over your cards if you have to.
Well, we're still like mid-upping the bet. We're deciding how much to bet.
I understand you don't want to give away information, but it could definitely cost you.
No, it's not the worst, but I
Clearing a guy's action.
Exactly.
Check. I don't think it was malicious.
What's the man's
Oh, no, of
margin?
course. No, a million dollars.
This was a 3-bet pot by Dominic. Tony G called, and now Dominic has check called the flop. This pot is really big right now. Really big. Tony's only got like, what, like 15K back? Is he going to just stick it in?
Check.
Nope, decides to check back.
Trying to pay the bills.
Trying to pay the bills.
Be pretty light to stick it in there with just ace high with no draw.
You have no idea how much those beanie hats cost. They're custom made, like 25 grand a hat.
There's a case in the garage I'm going to put in the exact spot in the fireplace.
Dom goes all in, which is very...
You should buy a
I don't think he's getting called by much weaker hands here. This is very interesting. His kicker doesn't even play. He's just playing 9s and 4s with the king right now, and I really think Tony's only calling with hands that beat that. So I think he would have been better off to check call there than to jam in that spot. I think that's a very strange shove. There's no value in it whatsoever.
One Lithuanian folded the other himself.
Because Tony, as he showed, is folding the ace high anyway.
Like all those times where you say,
We know that Phil is kind of checking on his, all the players are checking on their mobile devices, keeping with the updates that appear on the blog and stuff like that are about a half hour behind. So there is sort of a waiting for the hammer to drop idea.
Shame it doesn't just come at 5 or something.
I'm quite sure we're going to have to take a break at that point because I don't think we're going to be able to get any hands in.
No, make sure we don't take a break before it, I'll tell you that much.
In the deck, I was going to try to win the hand.
Got to see what happens.
Laak's opened this on the button.
Any other card, I was just check folding, and you would have nothing.
And Torelli's 3-bet squeezed this.
Tony G,
is he shoved?
He's qualified.
I think he shoved all in here.
As bad as possible for me. And then, you know, I got very
it's like 15K or so.
It comes like any card.
There's a lot of money out there. He can put in that 15K to risk. 200.
I didn't even see
the pot already contains 4,200.
No, it doesn't matter. You already folded.
He didn't release his hand.
What are you talking about, bro?
He never
Whose side are you on, buddy?
I'm on the side of action. I'm on the side of
you. That's all right.
You know what I mean? I'm on the side of action.
I think what Tony,
I don't want to take that much. Can you pull it in? Here.
Seems like what's happened has Alec didn't see that Tony had re-raised. He went to muck his hand, I guess.
12,000.
And didn't realize that Tony had shoved all in. Now he does realize.
I think he might call here because he's seen Tony shove really light last night specifically when he was shorter stack. He got in super light spots. I think he did it once with King 7. He also did it with like, you know, weak aces and weak kings in different spots. So that's what's going through his mind right now. Other people he wouldn't call, but he thinks that his king queen could like flip with a lot of hands and be totally live with a lot of hands. This happens to not be one of them.
Do you have the panda here?
Tony, now he really likes the call when he sees it.
Once or
But
twice.
I'll tell you what.
I got nothing.
Once or twice.
Once. So I got maximum I can win is once. Let's go.
One board.
Tony's
slow
pretending
playing
like
it.
he doesn't have a big hand.
Yeah, but you know, I got news for you. I think
I almost 5-bet him. Did you
seen the queen come?
Come on, let's go.
And then you took a break because I thought you were tilted.
And I knew I should have 5-bet.
All 3 queens are live in his deck.
if Torelli wins this, and obviously he's a dog, but
I had queen 4 hearts.
if
It's so sick because I'm like,
Oh,
I
gosh.
know he doesn't have it.
if Torelli wins this, he may be the big winner, the leader in the.
Yeah, he will be.
He may pass Phil Laak. Obviously, this is massive for Tony G.
Head anyways.
I'm gonna show you one.
No, it'll be close. He'll be up 100. Phil Laak will be up 117.
Listen, mate, let's go. I got nothing. I got no hand. I just want to hit a pair somehow.
You don't want to hit a pair, Tony. You definitely don't want to hit a pair.
One or the other.
You don't want an ace.
Dead or my hand's good.
That'll
That'll
do it.
work.
What do you got?
That'll work.
No, it's got better.
Slow roll.
He slow rolled him. He slow rolled him. Tony, he slow rolled him.
The game is on.
The mood at the table has shifted considerably after recent events and moves on to another level. More to come after the break. Welcome back to the big game, where Phil Laak has started to endure the same highs and lows that have cursed and blessed the others around this table. His stack, whilst still the highest, is considerably smaller, with Torelli applying the pressure back in second.
Was the queen good?
You can see how the money's getting spread around right now. Laak's still the big winner, but Moseley, though,
But he wins on
could
the
have given
9
all
range.
his chips to Laak.
Yeah, you're in great shape.
Torelli could have given all his chips to Tony G. Jesus, everybody at the table winning,
Except for Tony. And Tony just doubled.
Is that why the mood is so so light right now?
Well, it's light because of the slow roll. Everyone enjoyed that.
I lost twice to him yesterday. I had 206 at Jack's face.
If I had ace queen, it would have been good too.
And then I lost today to him, and then I lost to him.
Little does everyone know the storm that is about to come, that is brewing.
Because I wanted to go to sleep.
I would have been. I don't know if I would have been happier. I think I would be happier, but I don't think my happiness was affected at all. But I would have still wanted to win.
It's on you, Phil.
I tell you, I wish like someone else played that part. I would have.
You don't have that option. You do have that one.
And Seiver from the button with Dominykas and Laak in the second and third straddle positions, or whatever you call. What do you what position are you in? First straddle, second straddle?
It's hard to keep up with that. Especially because they're not mandatory. I'm not sure it's on 100% of the time. And our graphics don't put these straddles as blinds. And I'm happy to see Dom slow down a little bit here, deciding just to call sometimes, and I think he's happy. He was stuck a little bit and got up, and I think he's protecting that lead a little bit, up 20,000 now. Playing a little bit more conservatively. He rivers a jack, which is a really bad card for him. Scott had 3 kings, and now he's actually going to bet for value here. Scott will probably put in a raise.
3,800.
Scott could probably make it 12,000, 14, 15,000 even, if he's putting him on a hand like he has, Queen Jack, which is perfect for Scott. Oh, for about 15, 16 maybe.
And this is where Karmazinas has to
11,200.
11-2.
Oh,
Snap
say he has to worry. I guess he's bet to call. Seiver just
11,200.
just spun him around like a top.
Yeah,
there,
I mean,
didn't
it worked out perfectly for Scott, checking the king there on the turn, and then just Dom hit the perfect hand, the best possible card for Scott on the river, pairing his jack.
The max extracts.
So you love that period in the poker game.
That's the key to Scott Seiver's game. And for Karmazinas, thinking, how did I lose 20,000 euros there?
We're getting on really well. Like joking around, laughing quite a lot.
Oh yeah, everyone's the same guy winning or losing.
Yeah, we're just like having a good time. And I was listening to the Beatles on my iPod.
Celebrate. I'll do a restraddle. Do 400. I'll do 800.
I was listening to the Beatles on my iPod, and Johnny Chan goes,
Give
"What are you listening
Dominykas
to?"
a chance. And I want don't look at your card.
800
These are straddles. I haven't looked at my hand.
I believe that there's a 400. Tony G stuck the 800 straddle out there.
I take off my iPod. And it's playing along.
He's itching to pick up a hand here.
We should just chop them up.
Wow. I got news for you. When there's an 800 straddle out there and you pick up the ace jack, you're pretty happy, aren't you?
So, the Beatles
Yep, hopefully he doesn't run into something behind him.
Yeah.
Alec
him during the song.
is going to make it 2,000. I mean, no, at least 2,500.
Very quietly just sliding the stack.
Maybe 3,000.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Beatles still just quietly.
It's going to make this pot really big.
30? Yeah. Just move in.
You don't even ask me, you ask him, not me. I'm a little insulted.
Torelli's just thinking about stack sizes here. I don't exactly know why.
You didn't expect that, did you?
He thinks for a long time before calling.
Called.
Just do it now. You can just pull the plug on this.
I mean, I don't even know.
You might even fold.
No, I promise I was never gonna fold.
Could you
Good thing, too, because Scott Seiver picks up kings. Run better, Scott.
Because he's got such a great poker face, Scott.
Because he always looks the same. Blocks it over with his hand, mouth open.
70.
Thank you.
And
I'd expect Torelli to come along for the ride
well,
here.
I mean, to be fair, Torelli was going to be in a much easier spot if he had just raised. I don't know, did the alarm bells go off or something like that? I thought he was limp re-raising. He somehow managed.
Well, he gave away so much information. Oh, no. That's just about the worst possible flop
And,
for Alex Torelli.
Seiver's got 60,000. I mean, this pot could.
Yeah, this could be a big
If
one.
he goes bet here,
And it's hard for Scott not to put him on a jack if he just decides to call here. Because there's not much else out there unless he had some sort of pair like 5s or 6s.
I mean,
And he's going for the check raise for value here with ace jack. Scott's not going anywhere, but let's see how he decides to play this.
I mean, I know you say Scott's not going everywhere, but the way Torelli's playing this, it's starting to look like a set of deuces or a set of 4s.
No, I mean in Scott's mind too, it could be ace jack, like he has there.
Well, it was just the way he played pre-flop, which was he limped in instead of raising.
These guys can be check raising with any jack at this point because the stack sizes are so big and they want to see where they're at. It could be 10 jack or queen jack. It could even be ace 5. Wow, Scott's playing to obviously to call off his stack at this point. It's if you have a set of deuces or a set of 4s, you know, good game, and he's just gonna go down with it. But I think he thinks in his mind more likely he just has a top pair, and Scott's gonna be in a pretty good spot.
You there? 400, 800 must be.
I mean, that's what I put in 2 motions. I didn't mean to. I should have just said all in, but I made it 62,800. Yeah. So I mean, I meant to put all in, but I could make it 62.8 if you want.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's 400. I just didn't realize those were fighting chips. I thought like you were.
I mean, I think there's a little more money here than just getting 60,000 euros in on the flop with 2 kings. Scott's made the re-raise. Torelli's gone, I think, all in.
Scott's
and
calling.
I mean, he's calling?
He didn't re-raise there to 22,000 to fold.
I asked what the game was. They told me it's quarter 50 with a quarter ante. I even asked what their strat was. They go, they were doing it, but not anymore. I go, okay. I'll
Give you 1.5 million, you got 20
No,
in the bank. What do you care?
I got 180K euro pot here.
Just punting away.
I have a terrible
This is the
hand.
Premier League right
I'm
here.
so
You know?
tempted.
It could be a sick play with a suited like ace 5 of diamonds or something like that. Probably doesn't have a hand like 3-5. Limp calling pre-flop. I mean, the real problem with this board is, oh my God, he folds it.
I think he has to
I'm
fold.
very surprised.
It was a set. I mean, it was definitely. And I think Torelli knew exactly what was happening.
Run it up. We've been playing poker for 3 days.
You know, this is Scott was saying, this is a cash game. That pot was, 200,000 euros.
But it only cost him 40,000 to win 160 or 180 or whatever it was.
Boy, this game is blown out.
Everyone in the room cares.
The table showing the biggest winners in the 6th staging of the big game tells its own tale. Phil Laak is still leading the way, although his margin considerably reduced. Torelli is a man on a mission. Ignat Liviu could well have joined him, but an eviction cost him a place at the table. The same fate befell Roberto Romanello. As for the biggest losers, Jungleman leads the way there. A string of big names are in his wake, none bigger than Mike Sexton. Plenty of others have dipped their toes into this game and found it a costly experience, but there's no guarantee that they won't return to make amends. Still plenty of play left in this, the Party Poker Big Game 6.